crack a cold one. Welcome to another episode of Handlebar Ventures, and today's ride is one of my favorites. Today we're talking about my Specialized Enduro.
Which, if you didn't know, is actually a chameleon. If you take it to the bike shop, just so happens that it might be cracked in the headset, could turn into a different color.
That's right, fell victim to the infamous headset cracking issue. But knowing that, I still bought the bike, and I would still do it all over again. I was back up and running in less than a week. Specialized is a great warranty program. Am I crazy? Would you also buy this bike, knowing that it had a headset cracking issue? Let us know in the comments below. From what Specialized has told me, they have fixed the headset cracking issue on their new frames from 2022 and up. I don't know if this is true or not. We'll find out.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button and follow along. I'll let you know if it cracks again.
So, Chris, your Enduro, what size is it?
My Enduro is an S3. I'm 5'8", 180 pounds. The bike fits me well. It's long enough at the bike park that it feels stable at speed, but short enough that when I'm trail riding, it never feels cumbersome or awkward. That S3, with all the modification that you see here, weighs 35.4 pounds.
Does that hurt, saying that?
It hurts a little bit. There's a lot of carbon in that bike for it to weigh 35.4 pounds.
That is a true ready to ride, though. Pedals, water bottle, tools, everything you need, 35, ready to go. So, Chris, setup on this bike, was it easy?
Yeah, this bike was pretty easy to set up. I run 20% sag on the fork, the Fox 38. I run 30% sag in the rear on the Fox X2. I run the factory recommended settings with some small tweaks to rebound and compression, depending on which terrain I'm riding, but for the most part, I stayed right around the factory recommended settings and it felt great.
So your bike is the expert model. How do you feel about the components on the build? How's it spec'd?
The spec is fantastic, except for the wheel set. The wheel set it just didn't hold up, which is why I now run We Are One's Union wheel set, and that has been fantastic.
Any other issues that you've run into, such as maybe blown up X2?
Yeah, the X2 didn't hold up very well, but that was also covered under warranty. Apparently, Fox had issues with the original newly revised X2s in 2021. Hopefully that issue's been fixed on the new bike. The only other issue that I've had with the bike is the main pivot creaking. It comes from the factory without a lot of grease on it, so just taking that out, re-greasing it, and reassembling it is a quick fix.
So Chris, you're taking this bike back up to the top of the hill. How's it climb?
When you're seated and pedaling, there's very little bob and has a ton of traction. Rocks, roots, logs, whatever you want to go over, this bike just monster trucks right over it when you're climbing. And when you do stand up and pedal to really put some power down, it has a very firm pedaling platform, similar to that of a trail bike, but it still does weigh 35.5 pounds, so it feels like a big bike.
Now, if you're in like a real steep technical climb that's really like windy, is you still able to go around the turns fine?
Yeah, the bike it's long, but it doesn't feel excessively long. It's nimble enough to get around those tighter switchbacks when standing up and pedaling. It has a firm platform. You're able to kind of just mash up over those tight technical sections with ease.
Now your bike is a size 3, so maybe a bigger size would struggle a little bit?
Yeah, I think if I were to size up to a size 4, which you're able to do with Specialized S sizing platform, it would definitely feel too long on the climbs. An S2 would feel very nimble when climbing.
So on a mellow or a steep hill, how's the seat angle?
The seat angle, which some reviewers have said is too slack, does not feel too slack in my opinion. I think having that slacker seat tube angle puts a lot of weight over the rear end of the bike. The front never wants to come up when you're going up even the most impossibly steep hills. So I think having that slacker seat tube angle really gives you a lot of traction and helps you up some technical climbs.
So you're coming up the hill and you find this big rock garden. You feeling like it's gonna hang you up?
This bike has sort of a magic carpet ride feel while you're pedaling. You can sit down and just traverse over rocks, roots. It doesn't really matter. This bike just sort of floats right over top, and it never feels like it gets hung up on anything. It's very comfortable to cruise over rough terrain with.
So Chris, I was following you one time, and then all of a sudden, you just hit mock turkey speeds, and I couldn't keep up. What was going on?
I got to give a little credit to the bike. It doesn't slow down when you hit rougher terrain. It just keeps going. It just keeps boogieing. It just hits those rocks, those roots, and it just, I guess because of the rear road axle path, and there's maybe some magic behind that, it kind of just pulls up enough out of the way and almost just it holds speed over whatever terrain's in front of you. It's incredible.
So on flow trails or technical trails on this bike, which do you prefer the bike on?
The bike feels great on both. I think the bike is probably better designed for the rougher sections of trail. It just feels very stable over the rougher terrain because of the length, the geometry, the kinematics of the suspension. It just works really well in rough terrain. But that's not to say on flow trails it feels boring or sluggish. With the X2 on the rear of this bike, it feels poppy. It feels, I wouldn't say it feels like a trail bike, but for a 170 mil travel enduro bike, it feels playful and fun. If you put a coil on the back though, that is going to change how the bike feels a lot. It's going to be just a total monster truck, and it's going to lose a lot of that pop.
So Chris, this thing absolutely hauls the mail down the straight sections. How's it turn?
When you lean this bike over into a corner, it's very stable. It hugs the ground well. It tracks and points exactly where you want it to go. And then when you get into the tighter sections and you're going from turn to turn, it's surprisingly agile for a 170 mil travel enduro bike. It almost feels like a trail bike with the X2 rear shock. It's poppy and playful.
On the downhill sections, how does this bike handle the high speed sections versus the slow tech?
This bike handles both well, but it really comes alive in the higher speed sections of trail. The slacker geometry really just lends itself to being more stable at speed, and it really feels like it comes alive.
What kind of rider would you recommend this bike for?
This bike is for the rider that seeks out the gnarliest terrain. They want a bike they can pedal all day on big mountain adventures and also take to the bike park and ride laps all day with.
So the Specialized Enduro is a 2020 model year. It's 2022. Is the bike still relevant?
Yes, absolutely. I think the geometry changes from model year to model year have begun to slow. You can now buy a bike for the long haul knowing that it's still going to be relevant. Think Bike recently reviewed the latest round of Enduro bikes and compared them versus the Specialized Enduro. Matt Beer still preferred Specialized Enduro over the latest bikes.
Another thing to note is Nico Malali designs his own bike frames, and his personal Enduro bike happens to be the Specialized Enduro, and that's got to mean something.
So good!